Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special Unfiltered Truth Raider Chat with Moton. I am your host, Phil Robinson. With me, Phil Jones, the fabulous Moe'stradamus Moton here. Mo, how you doing today?
Doing pretty good. As I said off air, I got some salmon cooking, so it's a good day. Sunny day in Brooklyn. I know people don't usually talk about salmon out here in Brooklyn, but I'm in the gentrified area, so we're gonna do salmon and smoothies today.
Salmon and smoothies. How you cooking the salmon?
We baking that.
What?
Salt and pepper, a little bit of dash, seasoning, you
Mm-hmm.
know, just a little
No
something,
lemon?
little lemon
You
pepper.
gotta add
That's
lemon,
that's
bro.
You
that's a
got to
that's a
have the lemon. No,
that's
the
a
lemon squeeze, not the lemon pepper.
oh boy. Here we go. Y'all wanna add some
You
lemon.
gotta be
We
emotional when
we
you
got
like
we
squeeze the
gotta
lemon
keep it
too.
we got to keep it simple, man. I ain't got time to run out and go get some lemons today, so we just went with the
It
seasoning.
brings the flavor. The
Okay.
flavor.
Oh, hey, okay. The Spartan living, I can dig it. A man of simple tastes, and I do mean simple.
Now, what
But
kind of what kind of smoothie are you doing?
let's hop to it. I know you a busy man, and you were gracious enough to offer us your time. The Raiders are in off-season mode, full on with a bunch of stuff to go. And the latest news to come out is that Ed Dodds has pulled his name from the Bears GM search. And so, with everything that's going on, it kind of lends you to feel that maybe, just maybe, those things coming together, and the Raiders have already got their man.
How do we know it's Ed Dodds though? No, I'm kidding. But yeah, that's the guy that Raider Nation likes right now. Everyone's pining for the Ed Dodds Jim Harbaugh pairing. I personally like Rand Carthon out of San Francisco. We maybe get that into that discussion later on, but hey, maybe possibly it is Ed Dodds. He has a history with the Raiders, pretty successful with the Colts. They've been building playoff rosters despite their quarterback situation being either inconsistent or a mess. So if he's the guy, it's a good look.
Yeah, and you also find out yesterday that Pep Hamilton pulled out of his interview. He declined it. So that's saying a lot right there. Dobbs, Hamilton,
Jones,
everything.
are you putting together a conspiracy theory? Are you saying that the Raiders
Oh,
have their cabinet already? Is that what you're saying?
I don't put together conspiracy theories. I'm just piecing the puzzle together.
It's three guys talking
A
Raiders.
legit, realistic puzzle.
But in the grand scheme of things, but let's say you are correct. You wrote an article out for Sport Not, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
about the Raiders' top 5 head coaching hires or
Candidates.
interviews that they should make. Candidates. There we go. That's the word we were looking for. Please elaborate on some of that for those who haven't had the opportunity to read it.
Well, as everyone knows, I've been in a Harbaugh train since the rumor came out. Bruce Feldman put that in the ether. Harbaugh is my number one. He's the top choice, ideally. No need to go into his resume, but for people who don't know, 3 straight NFC championships, Super Bowl appearance with the 49ers. I had someone on Twitter just now ask me, why am I so hard on Harbaugh? And that's one of the reasons why. He's had success on the pro level, had success on the collegiate level, builds good coaching staffs. We just touched on a conspiracy theory, not conspiracy theory, but a theory that maybe Pep Hamilton is pulling out because he has his eyes on another job, hint in Vegas. But yeah, I mean, between his winning percentage, his success, coaching staffs, and I think the style that he coaches in, he's kind of people relate him to Gruden that he could be hard on players. But I think after being in Michigan and filtering through players, I think that's softened up a little bit. I don't think he's as harsh on players as Gruden is. So I'm not worried about that aspect of it. Brian DeBall is my number 2 guy behind Harbaugh. If Harbaugh stays in Michigan, Brian DeBall, look at what he's done with Josh Allen. Look at what he's done with that Bills offense. Spent some time with Bill Belichick and the Patriots in 2 different stints. Actually was the offensive coordinator for Alabama when they won a championship in 2017. If you remember, Jalen Hurts was pulled from that game and Tua Tagovailoa came in, led that team to a title. Third, Brian Flores. just let go by the Dolphins fresh out. My only concern with him is he's ran through three coordinators in 3 years. Maybe that's because he didn't like the quarterback situation. Maybe he wanted Justin Herbert in that draft. Who knows? But I do like Brian Flores for his defense. Multi-fronts, heavy man coverage on the back end. Raiders will have to revamp their secondary for him, but I would do it because he's had some success, back-to-back winning seasons in Miami. Fourth, Rich Bisaccia. I think he deserves at least consideration. First interim head coach to lead his team to the playoffs since 1961. Wally Lim did it, I believe, with the Houston Oilers. So got to give him respect for that. And if you look at it compared to Gruden, team has fallen apart under Gruden in the second half of the season when they started strong. They picked up after going 6-7 under Rich Bisaccia. So I think he deserves some consideration. Todd Bowles is my fifth pick. A lot of people aren't going to like Todd Bowles because they remember what he did with the Jets. And I'll say, just look at his quarterbacks. He had Ryan Fitzpatrick for 2 years. He had Josh McCown, who was 38 years old. And he had a rookie version of Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold, as we know, we don't even know if he's a starting quarterback now. So he didn't really have a quarterback support there. So I think if he has a decent quarterback and a better GM, he had Mike McCagan. Mike McCagan was one of the terrible front office executives in New York. Jets fans will tell you that up and down the timeline. So I think with a good quarterback and a good GM, Todd Bowles can be successful. He's got a pretty good defense in Tampa Bay. Honorable mention, initially I was high on Kellen Moore and I've cooled off on him. A lot of people think it's because of what's happened to the Dallas Cowboys in the past month or so. Questionable calls down there, but I think he's too young for the position. I think the Raiders need someone who's a little bit more experienced, someone who's been around the block a few more times. Kellen Moore has only been a coach on the pro level for 4 years. So I just don't think he'll command the respect of some of the other guys that are listed on the head coaching list.
No, to your point, I agree with Kellen Moore. I think that right now he's best served as a coordinator to learn the game, learn the intricacies of dealing with professional athletes as a coach a little bit better before he attempts to get the main job. Most importantly, he's got to be able to show that he can get his offense through a stretch that like they had against the Niners where they almost lost that game. But with a couple of turnovers late, they got back on top of it. Now, the one thing I can say I did like about the last quarter of the Cowboys-Niners game was the prevent defense beating offense that he had. It was very unique, and when I looked at it, I was kind of instantly jealous that the Raiders don't have something like that to go, but that's a conversation for another day. I digress. So with the head coach, what do you think about the whole general manager thing? Now we've heard the names Tony Brown mentioned. We've heard Dave Ziegler, Ed Dodds, and there was another one that just came up recently.
Trey Brown? Or did you mention
Trey Brown? Mm-hmm. I believe I'd mentioned him.
Cincinnati. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what's weird though about these general manager candidates? A lot of people aren't familiar with them. So you kind of have to do your research. I mean, I cover the league for a living. I had to do my research with some of these candidates. But it's funny, the one that I had a lot of pushback on was Jeff Ireland. I just want to talk about him for a minute. And I know people remember him from the Miami Dolphins. He didn't have a winning record with that team when he was general manager there. I believe 46-50. That situation turned into a disaster. But he kind of repaired his image with the Saints. He had some hits. He's the assistant general manager and I believe the college scouting director alongside Mickey Loomis. And the Saints had a home run draft in 2017, basically hit or near hit on all their picks. And that's the Marshawn Lattimore class. That's the Alvin Kamara class. So I think he's repaired his image a little bit in New Orleans, and Sean Payton has praised him. I know there's rumors out there that the Raiders may be interested in trading for a head coach, and Sean Payton's name came up. Can you imagine if it's a package deal with Jeff Ireland and Sean Payton together? I'm just putting that out there. I'm just saying. But I think Jeff Ireland would be a pretty decent hire despite what happened in Miami because of what he's doing in New Orleans, and I think he deserves a second chance.
That was a name I hadn't even considered. That you bring up an interesting point about that, and that does make sense. Out of all the names that have been mentioned to me, Ziegler and Dodds are probably the two that I'm most interested in. And I would think that when you look at what the Raiders need moving forward, as much as we would like to find the next best thing, having an established thing is better. Having a pedigree and a chain of success is much better in terms of what they need moving forward.
It's Ziegler that's really that really caught my eye a little bit. Just going back and looking at free. They went on and got Von Miller. See, hold up. Now you see that with Dobbs, like I said earlier, pulled out. You see the success he's had in Indianapolis. I think Mark Davis, he's on the right path of getting guys that can bring the success that they need to do for this team versus what he's had over the past couple of years. So I think we're going to probably be in a better situation this year.
Yeah, your connection kind of can't cut out halfway through it being Mr. Roboto Jones, but no, it's a lot of interesting piece right now. There's a lot of uncertainty coming through from some of the players and whatnot, and a lot of the popular question on the table, Mo, is I'm sure what do we do with Mr. Derek Carr? Now, you and I had spoken a while back, and we had talked about one of the criteria for keeping Carr is probably going to be a new contract, and he at this point in his career, I'm fairly certain he's going to be demanding a no trade clause. And with all the other things on top of how much do you pay him and yada yada, I just got to believe that the no trade clause is going to be a deal breaker.
Yeah, we talked about that, and now that we're putting it out there, I think half of Raiders Twitter would go crazy if the Raiders gave Derek Carr a no trade clause. But you bring up a good point that, remember, he's going to be 31 years old, and you raise this aspect. Does he want to, after going through what he's gone through the past couple of years, where could he be traded or whatever, sent somewhere else, and speculation going on? Does he want to go through that for another 3-4 years? And I think a no trade clause, from his perspective, makes sense because then you shut out all that noise and he has more control and leverage over the situation. So I definitely think that you bring up a great point. I don't know if he gets that no trade clause, but I definitely say it's one of two things with Derek Carr and the Raiders. He's either going to get a new contract for guaranteed money, of course, because he doesn't have any on the deal right now in his final year, or he's going to get traded. And I think if he does get traded, it'll be for an upgrade. So I'm just going to say this. Ed Dodds had some time with the Seattle Seahawks in their, I believe, scouting department. That department did a lot of work on Russell Wilson when he was coming out of Wisconsin. I'm just going to put that out there. Just saying. No conspiracy theories, just saying.
I don't think that's a just saying. I think that's as I said this morning, buckle up. Go and buckle up, you guys.
And by the way,
it's going to be a crazy ride.
And by the way, Ian Rappaport said that Russell Wilson wants to explore his options. So who knows? I'm not saying that the Raiders go after Russell Wilson. I'm just saying that when you connect the dots with some of these things, it looks kind of interesting in the light.
It's one of those deals where it looks like everything, all the planets and stars are aligning, and it's where there's smoke, there's fire, and they got a lot of stuff that they're going on, but it really is starting to take shape. But moving away from all of that, now that we finally got a chance to get you on the program, it's been. What are your thoughts on the season as a whole, just from the aspect of the football alone, not even going into all of the off the field stuff that we haven't even had a chance to talk about?
Well, I wouldn't call the season a success because to me, I'm a harsh person saying the only success is a Super Bowl win. That's number one. But I will say I was honestly surprised at how they finished the season after dropping to 6-7. I'm thinking this is the same old Raiders team from 2019 and 2020 that folded under John Gruden. And as I mentioned with Rich Bisaccia and his ability to pull his team out of the mud and into the playoffs, that shocked me in the positive sense. So that's why I think he deserves at least consideration for the job. But overall, I would say the Raiders season was a strong positive. You got back to the playoffs for the first time since 2016. You got some pieces on both sides of the ball. So I don't think the new GM or head coach need to completely tear down the roster, but we know how that goes. New people come in, they want to implement their vision, which means changes. But you don't have to tear it down completely because you have, as I said, some pieces in place. So I think this team can move forward and just build upon what they have and get back to the playoffs. So again, they didn't sneak into the playoffs as a 7th seed, and I made this point on Twitter. They were the 5th seed. They were a legitimate playoff squad after going 6-7 and winning the last 4. So I really think the future looks good for the Raiders if they don't go through a complete teardown as they did under John Gruden in 2018.
So that ties into the next question. So if we get the whole coaching pattern and the whole offseason pattern that we've been outlining, what does this coaching staff do now? The way that is they finish the season, it looks like the perfect team for Harbaugh to coach: a power running attack, good defense, and a game manager quarterback. And you would ideally like a little bit more out of consistency out of your quarterback position. You'd like to be getting those numbers that you got through the first 7 weeks of the season during the last 7 weeks of the season. But Harbaugh is a special kind of guy. He's a fiery guy. He's a real competitor, and it would beg the question. It'd be more the same thing of the questions that we had with Carr and Harbaugh. Is that a match? Is that a clash? Because you got to remember, Harbaugh coached Rich Gannon when he was on his run, and Harbaugh worked with Gruden. Excuse me, if I could talk. Worked with Gruden to implement that plan that made them special. And so when you put all of that together, said, is Carr going to be a Harbaugh guy?
I know that question is going to come up, and because of way Harbaugh coaches and the style, and I think if Carr can withstand and endure Gruden, he should be able to handle Harbaugh. And Carr is not some second, third year player. I know a lot of people want to say that he's kind of on the soft side because he's the way he carries himself, but I think he'll be able to handle Harbaugh, especially if the team is improving, the team is winning. It's more of is Harbaugh going to see Carr as his guy? And again, I think that just goes back to execution and winning. If the Raiders are winning, why rock the boat? Now, he did it between Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick, where he made a switch and got to the team to the Super Bowl. So I will say Harbaugh is not afraid to make a switch if he feels it's necessary. But I think Derek Carr is pretty much safe in the sense where if they mesh well in the first year and the team is on the right track as they continue on what they did this year, I think Derek Carr and Harbaugh will be fine.
Okay. And I saw somebody in our comments section. So there's this crazy idea that somehow, some way, the Steelers are going to move on from Mike Tomlin, and the Raiders are going to trade for him as well as Sean Payton if Payton was available. What are your thoughts on Mike Tomlin?
I like Mike Tomlin. He doesn't get enough respect, and I think it's because people expected the Steelers to win more with his tenure with Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, some of the stars that they've had there. But I don't think he gets enough respect. And if you tap into Steelers Twitter, some fans want to get rid of him, and I think that's just nuts. But if the Raiders are able to pull off a trade and get a Mike Tomlin, I'm all for it. And it's not just about him being good at the podium at the mic. That's something totally different. His teams are always competitive. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger pretty much washed this year. Got the Steelers to the playoffs with a 9-7-1 record. So you can't be mad at that. And if he can do that with a washed-up Ben Roethlisberger, what can he do with a Derek Carr or a quarterback that's on the upstart? So I really like the Mike Tomlin idea. I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think the Raiders are going to wind up trading for a head coach.
I don't either. I'm of the mind looking at their salary cap issue, and it's they got $39 million in salary cap, and I actually have an article coming out for the Ramble outlining some of their defensive free agents that they need to re-sign and take a look at. But they're going to need to draw. You look at this team and the way the roster set up and the free agents, they're going to need to hit in the draft because they don't have a whole lot of money to be throwing around.
And this is why Carr has to be careful about what he's demanding at the negotiating table, right? He can't, and I don't think he's going to command $40 million a year. I don't think he's getting a contract at that level, but he's got to be careful about how much he wants because he's got to leave room for the Raiders to revamp some positions. I think they have to revamp the linebacker core. Nick Morrow, do you bring him back? Denzel Perryman's future, he's there, but Nick Kwiatkowski and Corey Littleton, both disappointments, and I think they're both done. I know people are bringing up Corey Littleton's dead cat money. I think it's about $4 million. I mean, the Raiders like
pre-June first cut.
Yeah, as a post-June cut, I believe it's
not that. It's what carries over into the following year is $9 million.
It says 4 on over the cap.
Yep. Go into the following year.
Continue, Mo.
So you're gonna have to revamp regardless of what happens with Littleton, whether he's all the roster or not. You got to revamp that unit. What are you gonna do with your offensive line? You need a right tackle because, as we all know, as we've been new, Brandon Parker ain't it. I think you need to upgrade the left guard position. John Simpson, I mean, he can start, but is he that good? You got to bring in a wide receiver. I was campaigning to bring in Allen Robinson. I have been, and I continue to be on that track. I know some people want Chris Godwin, but I think Allen Robinson would be the dude you bring in. I'm not believing in Devontae Adams' pipe dream. I think A-Rob is a realistic target for free agency. So yes, you're gonna have to parse the money a little bit, but there's gonna be some revamping on some areas, and I think it's feasible. Again, if Derek Carr asks for a reasonable salary.
So on that particular train, say you bring in A-Rob. To me, A-Rob is obviously a better version of Brian Edwards and Zay Jones, but you have 3 guys who are pretty much the same guy, and you drafted Brian Edwards to be a player, and I don't necessarily agree that I recognize that he did not have the greatest year, and he's definitely not meshing with Carr. But I don't believe that's an error on his fault. I believe that's an error in the way that he's being deployed, schemed up, and just flat out not getting enough opportunities.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The problem is when you bring in a new coaching staff and new GM, they may not necessarily see the players that are there the same way the previous regime did. So is Brian Edwards, is he going to have a secure role? Or is the new regime going to come in and say, okay, we want to keep Brian Edwards in a starting spot? Who knows? But we do know that Allen Robinson, everywhere he's gone between the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Chicago Bears, he's been pretty good, proven commodity. So if you want him and you bring him in, you pretty much know he could be your go-to wide receiver.
Fair enough. So defensive tackles. Well, all of the Raiders' defensive tackles are free agents at this time. Who would you bring back?
Definitely would bring back Quentin Jefferson. Doesn't get a lot of respect. Does a lot of the dirty work, but he came up with some impact plays. I would definitely bring him back. Darius Philon tore his patellar tendon. Got to see how he recovers. Without the injury, I definitely bring him back. But with him is more of how what is his recovery timetable after this. And then Jonathan Hankins. I like Jonathan Hankins, but he's getting older. I think you have to revamp and just go younger at the nose tackle position. Another run stuffer, maybe get 2 run stuffers. One veteran, and one guy in the draft. I think that's definitely a possibility. Solomon Thomas, I initially felt like he definitely deserved a new contract, should be re-signed. If they get him from an affordable price, I would still take him back as well. Cleveland Ferrell, not only is he not getting the 5th-year option exercise on his contract, I don't even think he's going to be on the roster next year, to be honest with you. Barely played, huge disappointment. I don't think he's
not going
back
anywhere. He's going anywhere. They that albatross of a 4th, while he may not get the 5th-year option, that 4th-year balloon was a precursor to that, especially for the premium position that he played. He's counting against the cap for $10 million, whether he's there or not.
Yeah, that's true. But do you think a team is going to say, hey, we'll take a chance on him, we'll acquire him? I know it's a huge contract, but let's say a team thinks he's a good fit. And they'll say, well, we got the cap money. We got money to blow. TV deals are coming in. We'll take a chance on them.
I think that they're going to end up hanging on to him because there's a possibility that he can fill a role in a different type defense. It didn't work at the way that he was used in Bradley's scheme. He met with varying degrees of success in how he was deployed, but I got to believe with his particular skill set that if he'd be a light, maybe 5-7 technique, but maybe that would work. Or maybe you could just use him as an old fashioned defensive end and have a pass rusher lined up outside of him. But nobody's going to take that 10 million off of the Raiders without them coming up off of something as well.
Do you think they could work out a deal where the Raiders pay part of the salary and any other team pays part of the salary, and that's how they get out of it? Because you could do some crazy things with the cap. I know a lot of people want to cite dead money and cap and all this stuff, but if you look at what the Saints have been doing, I know it's a different situation. But if you look at what the Saints have been doing and other teams have been doing with their cap, there are so many things you can do with cap hits and trades and negotiations, and you just never know.
No, the possibilities are endless, because up until maybe June of what was it, April, May of last year, I never ever would have believed that the Saints would have been able to get down from $100 million over the cap, $100+ million over the cap, to being able to keep the majority of their roster intact and write out some of the most bogus contracts I've ever seen in my life. I still don't know. Taysom Hill is going to be a Saint for life, because they're going to be paying him $10 a year for the rest of his life.
But I mean, there you go, stretching the deal out. They're just, as I said, there's just so many options, and with Cleveland Farrell, it's just sad to see, because I think he could be a decent player with a decent amount of snaps, but you just haven't seen it from him.
The explosion on the outside is just not there. That's not his game. It'll never translate at this level. It's just not there. So he's either going to have to move inside and put on some pounds, or just not be not be that counted on pass rusher. Which will make him a rotational defensive end no matter where he goes. And that's the sad reality of it.
Really quick, you remember with Solomon Thomas going to the 49ers? I compared the two where they're similar in the sense that Solomon Thomas was picked super high and people thought he kind of went before he should have. Goes to the Raiders, goes to a scheme that fits him, and he's serviceable. Maybe not a top 5, top 3 pick, but serviceable in the sense that you can move him around and he has some versatility.
No, I agree. And so, like you said earlier, and for all that you said about the defensive free agents, you missed off one that I'm quite interested to hear your take on, and that's Brandon Faison. He came in, he did some things well, and later in the season, teams figured out a way to attack him. And I don't necessarily know if it was him that they were attacking, or the scheme, because a lot of what Bradley does with his cover 3 is give his corners 7-yard cushions, and that just allows for teams to have those short little 5-yard hitters pretty much unchallenged all game long. And if you stack up enough of those, throwing that in somebody's particular direction, they end up with a trash rating on PFF that's not really indicative of the way that they played.
Hey, so you're saying PFF is not the gospel? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, I mean, in this business, it's all we got, Mo. How would you ever question PFF no matter what they say? I was looking, like I said, you'll have to read the article. But I was like, "Who, dog?" Looking at this, I was like, "Yeah, wow. I think y'all got this wrong." But
no,
but they take the whole season into account, not just the ebbs and flows.
No, but I think Faison, you give him a chance. I think he gets a chance if Gus Bradley is somehow back. I think if the Raiders move on, turn over the coach staff, I don't think Faison is back there. I mean, he's had some issues. Allowed a 55.6% completion rate, 6 touchdowns. Led the Raiders in pass breakups, by the way, with, I believe 13 or 14. But he was a midseason pickup. He was kind of like, okay, we need a guy. Trayvon Mullen's hurt. Amik Robinson didn't work out. We need somebody who knows the scheme and you can plug in right away. So I think that was his situation that benefited him. But again, if Gus Bradley's not back, neither is he.
And so then that leads into the obvious question. Well, it's you got a new regime. You got a new regime, so a new regime brings in their own guys and yada yada yada. But should Bradley come back? I mean, should Bradley get an opportunity to work with this defense and get some more of his guys in? Because one of the problems that they experienced was that he had to mix bits and pieces until he was able to find a lineup that worked or guys were ready. Because once Divine Diablo was able to hit the field and take over that starting position, the run defense just took off tremendously.
Yeah, and the Raiders defense definitely picked up toward the end of the season. It's a mixed bag with Gus Bradley. On one hand, people are going to point out, well, the Raiders scoring defense ranked 26th in the league. Well, they also gave up, I believe, 5.2 yards per play, which ranks 7th best. You know, on one hand, the pickups that the Raiders have gotten that know his scheme worked out. Denzel Perryman, Roger Teamer had a position where he played well for a stretch. We talked about Brandon Faison playing well. Darius Farlon's a former Gus Bradley guy, so a lot of the Gus Bradley guys actually checked out. It's just now, can he be able to, in some cases, not be too stubborn and add a few wrinkles to his scheme? Now, who knows? Some people are going to be saying, well, he's set in his way. He's been coached a certain way. He has his scheme. He has his coverage. That's what he's going to stick to, and that's a problem. What I will say is that my issue is the red zone defense has to improve. If he's going to be back, there's got to be some tweaks there, because if the Raiders continue to get killed in the red zone, they're going to lose. They're going to lose football games they shouldn't be losing.
Well, and you look at this particular variation of this defense, and this is more of his defense in San Diego, Los Angeles than Seattle, because your corners are smaller. They don't, and he doesn't walk. They don't press bail. They stay off ball, which is something that drives me absolutely bonkers. But towards the end of the season, you saw him reaching the bag of tricks for his blitzes. And one of the things that I saw about the PFF is that all of the secondary is ranked fairly high in pass rush, which means when they come on blitzes, they're getting there and they're causing interruptions. The problem is he's not calling enough of them. You looking at this defense, and it's easy to say, "Oh, they were this low in scoring," but the reality is that he's doing it with cast-offs, veterans, and rookies.
Mm-hmm.
Nate Hobbs had one of the best years in the league as a slot corner as a rookie. Keyshawn Nixon came in behind him and performed well. And so maybe it's a defensive thing with that and part of the scheme. But all in all, these are all things that you have to consider moving forward. These are all things that are going to be under the microscope, especially when you're looking at what we're doing with the general manager, what we're doing with the coach, and then getting down to the staff and the players.
I look at it this way. I wouldn't be mad if they retained him, but I wouldn't say, oh man, they're missing out if they don't retain him. Depending on who the new defensive coordinator, or let's say the Raiders hired Todd Bowles, right? And Todd Bowles is calling the plays. I'm okay with that. Now, somebody brought up the point on Twitter, which is a good point, that you play Patrick Mahomes with too high, and Todd Bowles likes to blitz, and that could be a problem. And I'll say I think Todd Bowles is a little more flexible with his scheme than Gus Bradley was or is right now.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think that's a big issue if it's Todd Bowles coming in and calling the plays.
Right. I'm of the same mind. You look at Bradley's track record, and usually what happens is when you give him the second year to get in some more guys or get a new crop of guys to look at some new talent, he ends up turns it into a very successful unit. But the regime change is a regime change, and like you eloquently pointed out earlier, new coaches see guys different ways, and everything is gonna come around in its proper time, and you're gonna see it's got to flow downhill. Water's got to flow downhill. Can't put the cart in front of the horse and all those other cliches of timing and whatnot. But you get what I'm saying.
Look, it's weird though to me, and not weird, but someone brought this point up that it seems like the Raiders are gonna hire or might hire their head coach before the GM, and if they do, I think that would say that the head coaching hire, like a Harbaugh, is probably one of those guys who's going to have a lot of influence. And I'm not saying the GM will be toothless, like kind of like how Mayock was under Gruden, but
Right.
if the Raiders make a head coaching hire first, it's because that head coach is I don't want to say going to be the de facto GM, but he's going to have a lot of power, a lot of autonomy over that roster.
And that's what makes me curious about it, is because they gave what amounts to me as some obligatory interviews and got more of got the way than actually considered the guys that they were talking to in order to get the jobs. I could be wrong about that, but I don't believe that I am. The GMs on the other hand, these are guys, the guys that they're interviewing are guys that they're not going to be able to sit and wait on. The coaching situation can work itself out in its own proper time, and what a lot of people fail to realize is most of the guys that are on your list are still coaching, so they would probably perceivably have to wait for them to stop coaching or get the okay to interview for the job.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, on number 2 on my list, Brian Daboll. I think he's, if you're not going to get Harbaugh, I think he's the guy you really have to laser focus in on. I think that would be the best hire the Raiders can get if they don't get their rock star head coach. But as you said, it's going to be a competitive pool. I believe 8 openings. But I think the Raiders' job is the best job on the market simply because this is a team that just went to the playoffs. And as we just talked about earlier in the show, they have solid pieces. Now, I think Derek Carr is probably the wild card in this, because if you get a coach that doesn't want Derek Carr there, then you're essentially looking at a full rebuild. If the coach you get wants Derek Carr, then you're looking at, okay, they're probably going to try to build over what they did in 2021.
I mean, do you think that Derek Carr will be able to pick up a new offense?
I think it'll take him some time, as we've seen. Even when Gruden came in, it looked rough in 2018 for half of 2019.
So in a weird way, I mean, you would still be looking at a rebuild, right?
It's not a rebuild in the sense where you get it. Let's say a new head coach comes in and says, I don't want Derek Carr. I want to trade Derek Carr, get some picks, and basically do what the Raiders did under Gruden and say, okay, we're going to just accumulate a bunch of picks and we're going to start over and build a new roster under a new vision. Now, if you're saying a coach likes Derek Carr, okay, you have a rough half of the season. You have a rough 1 year, but you're still not starting over with maybe an unknown commodity, because let's say that head coach, general manager, wants to draft a quarterback. And as we all know, this quarterback draft isn't as good as years past, at least on paper. So you're taking a huge risk with an unknown versus, okay, one down year with Derek Carr, half a year where Derek Carr has to pick up an offense. And then Derek Carr has been going through coordinators and schemes his entire career, so he should be used to it by now.
So then that brings on the most important question that we've had. Now, looking at Carr's numbers down the stretch, we're talking about a whole rebuild. What if they find somebody who can do what he was asked to do, but better?
Well, then you go for it. And I've been on multiple shows saying, look, I'm not one of these quote unquote Derek Carr stands that says you got to keep Carr no matter what. I'm open. I have an open mind. I say, look, if you think a guy's an upgrade, you go for it. Or if you think a guy can get you the same with what Derek Carr can get you for less money, you go for it. I just don't know if those options, there's too many options out there that can get you that.
My home run swing right here, Mo. My home run swing. What about a trade to Houston?
See, everyone's talking about that, but I think we're all forgetting that Deshaun Watson has got some legal situations to iron out. Now, everyone has their opinion on that, but the fact of the matter is he's got that extra aspect to him, attached to him, that you got to figure out what's going on there, and the Raiders have to do their due diligence. But if you can get a Deshaun Watson and you feel good about his situation, I like it only because you don't have to teach Deshaun Watson how to use his legs and use his mobility to his advantage. Like that's going to come in naturally, automatically for him, even though he's missed a year of football. You don't forget how to play quarterback in the NFL. So I like the Deshaun Watson situation for the Raiders, but I haven't talked about him because of his legal matters.
Fair point. Phil, you got anything?
Tell me this. Would you touch Winston?
I wouldn't touch Winston. I like Winston, but I'm not getting rid of Derek Carr for Jameis Winston.
I mean, even after the performance he put off with the Saints,
he's coming off a torn ACL. You still have to make sure you have a good run game around him because you don't want him to go haywire with the turnovers. I know he got LASIK eye surgery and he's better, but he still has that tendency to throw the ball up there and throw picks.
I mean, 14 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, man.
Yeah, but if you look at some of his games, there were games where he didn't do much either. Some of it was the Saints defense was playing pretty well. You had Alvin Kamara back there. So he had some help.
Let's be real. That Green Bay game, you didn't put up 5 touchdowns. Yeah, you had a rough one against Carolina in week 2, but you go down the rest.
Jones,
it's pretty good.
Jones, he had 4 games where he threw either 1 or no touchdowns.
Carr had 7.
It's Carr had 7, but you're looking at an offense where Carr lost some of his weapons. Now I know the Saints didn't have much either.
But there we go.
I'm also looking at an offense that had Carr throw for almost 5,000 yards too.
I'm just saying that if you're looking at Carr and Winston. Is Winston an upgrade over Carr? Because I'm not getting rid of a quarterback to make a lateral move. I'm not making a lateral move. I'm only trading Derek Carr if I'm upgrading the position.
To be honest, if you don't have his injury, the Saints are most likely in the playoffs. Everything fell apart with the Saints because they didn't have stability at the quarterback position.
Well, the Raiders made the playoffs. So what are you saying? And
I said the Saints,
right? But you're comparing Winston his situation to Derek Carr.
Okay, but what I'm saying is this right here: your defense basically took care of business, and your kicker came in and took care of the business. Yeah, everybody can say, Carr drove downfield to help set things up, but when last 5 games, you only putting up 6 touchdowns, 5 picks, and a couple of turnovers, fumbling
per game.
Yeah. So you're saying if Winston was in Derek Carr's situation, he would have put up a lot better numbers. Is that what you're telling me?
I mean, you said with the least amount of talent that they had. Yeah.
I'm gonna respectfully disagree there, but you also gotta understand. Like I said, Winston didn't have a lot around him, didn't have a lot of talent around him, but he did have Sean Payton, right? Yeah. Better play call than what the Raiders had. Is it not?
Show is. You ain't lied about that.
So I'm just saying, when you compare a situation with these quarterbacks, you got to look at the whole picture. I know they both had tough situations. They both didn't have things. I believe Winston also had a better offensive line than Carr had this year. So you also have to weigh that in there too. But with Winston being a free agent, you don't even have to trade Carr to bring in Winston. You could just sign Winston. And if you think that they're on equal level, you have them battle. I don't think that's going to happen. But you don't have to give up anything for Winston. He's going to be a free agent anyway.
And again, I didn't say. I just said you can pick him up.
So basically, you're going to have a Carr Mariota situation part 2 with a less mobile quarterback.
I mean, who's more the less mobile guy?
Carr's better with his legs than Winston is. Have you seen Winston play? Have you seen Winston play? Carr has improved. I'm not saying Carr is Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson out there, but Carr has continuously improved with his legs. I know he's not a runner, but I'm talking in terms of moving the pocket, extending plays. He's gotten better at that with every season. I don't think Winston has made the same jumps in that aspect as Carr has had in the past few years.
I think Winston's been good on his legs. The numbers show it. I mean, he's got 11 touchdowns running into the end zone. Last year, he had 32 carries, 32 rushes for 166 yards and a touchdown. So, I mean, when you want to talk about comparison between using legs and escaping out of the pocket, I'm going with Winston over Carr.
Really? It's fun. And I'm not talking about just run. I'm talking about extending plays with mobility.
Don't just look at. Yes.
Don't just look
at.
No.
And I wanted to sit and watch how Winston would play, and I'm going to be real. It looked better. I know you can think I'm sounding crazy as hell, but it looked better than what I've seen of an old boy.
Now let's keep in mind he's coming off of a torn ACL.
Okay.
Let's factor that in there too. Just saying.
At this point, I just want to see them bring Jameis on just so I could watch David Carr hate on him and all his practices and all his techniques. You can't use that. You never do that. Oh, on all my years of football, I've never seen.
Yeah.
Jameis wouldn't be my guy. But hey, to each their own. Wouldn't be my guy, but you stated your case, and I respect it.
That's what I said. I can respect it. I don't shut down people for their opinions. I'm not out here to say, "Oh, you're stupid for what you think." Hey, that's your opinion. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think the Raiders would be interested in a Jameis Winston. I think if they do bring in, let's say, a backup quarterback for Derek Carr, whoever, they're going to want a guy who's more naturally mobile in the pocket. I think you don't want a quarterback. You have to say, okay, is he going to improve in this area? Is he a statue back there? I'm not saying.
And we lost Mo. I guess we hit the time limit on Mo. Somehow the phone just cut off right in the middle of it. I would say that Jameis Winston is probably a hell no to Earl.
Look, I put it like this. As much as folks look at, I think, and that's the thing about the media, bro.
My man here said he said he's a FSU fan and he would never bring on famous names. And it's interesting because you'd be swapping the number 1 and 2 draft picks to see who's gonna replace Derek Carr. Now, since you're back, Mo, I'll ask you this question, and we can hash this particular discussion out. Marcus Mariota has been on this team. They paid him an awful lot of money to do nothing but run a couple read options. In the event that Harbaugh is the coach, what would stop Harbaugh from moving forward with Mariota? Is he quite Derek Carr? No. Is he Colin Kaepernick? No. I'd say that arguably he'd be someone in between and someone who Harbaugh would have a varying degree of familiarity with, going back to, I believe, Oregon and Stanford.
Here's the thing about Mariota, right? I wouldn't be able to trust him. It has nothing to do with him on the field. Well, it does, but he's just not durable. Can you trust Marcus Mariota to play a full 17-game season?
Could you trust him to play a full 17-game season if you don't use him like he's a running back?
Even when he wasn't used as a running back in Tennessee, he was getting hurt almost every year.
But they didn't block for him.
Well, what do the Raiders all have in their offensive line right now? They don't have a quality offensive line. So you're going to put him behind an offensive line that has some question marks, and he has an injury history that he has? That's a huge risk.
But the offensive line grades out as elite in terms of pocket time.
Look, if Marcus Mariota runs on one particular play, there's a possibility he's going to come up limping with a calf injury or something going on with his leg.
But how many run plays did he have when we finally started putting him in? He didn't get hurt then.
He didn't. But do you trust him to play a full 17 games?
So you should be able to trust him if the last couple of games that you put him in you ran your little read option razzle dazzle with him, you should still be able to trust him to put him in.
Look at his injury.
Again, I would tell you this from what I heard from a player's wife, what she told me week 1, they were gunning for the Raiders. They were gunning to hurt each and every one of them.
I can't speak on that because I didn't speak to the woman that you spoke to.
Hey,
I can't.
I ain't
That's
gonna
something
put
I
his name
can't.
out there.
That's something I can't comment on. But what I can comment on is, if you look at the totality of Marcus Mariota's history, regardless of how he's been used, he's been hurt, and that's not a quarterback I'm investing in as my starter. Period.
I give him a chance, and I think with everything that happened in the last few years, everybody wants to jump in and say, well, 2020, he was out for a minute. You have to factor in COVID shut down a lot of facilities where you would usually go and do your physical therapy at. You wouldn't be able to go on and get the proper, I think it was he had slight nerve damage around the elbow, so you couldn't get the proper surgery. The second thing is, again, he healed up from that calf injury that was during camp. Everybody gets nicked up. Week 1 comes in, has the big play. What's funny, the area that they said that he hurt his calf at is the same area that I'm literally looking on this play where what's the dude's name? Humphreys throws all his weight on, and you can say I'll be reaching all that. Y'all can reach these. Let me stop. I'm just gonna stop. I'm just saying, because when he came back, I didn't see no problem with Marcus Mariota.
So you rolling with Marcus Mariota just started next year. You're moving on from Carr. You put.
You gotta give him a chance. When
you gotta give him a chance.
Has he gotten a fair chance?
So here.
No, but he wasn't
while we
dance
in this circle, while we dance in this little circle with the three of us, let me throw this out there. So let's say potentially Carr's not a Harbaugh guy. Harbaugh decides to go with Mariota. Mariota is not the quarterback that we think he is, and the team bombs. You also are now putting yourself in line to be at the top of the list for CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, and all of the other top tier college quarterbacks that weren't available in the draft this season.
So you're suggesting either Mariota does well or it's okay because then you tank for a better quarterback.
I would never say tank.
So then you're saying that Mariota either is successful or we're bad enough to get a top blue chip prospect quarterback in the 2023 draft.
8-8 is purgatory, Mo. You know that as well as I do. You're good enough to think that you just need a couple of pieces, and you don't think you're bad enough to blow it up.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. No argument there.
You put in Mariota, he's either the guy, or you're drafting high enough to make a real run at the future, which in any case was what you needed to do anyway.
How about this? Raiders go with Carr. He has a decent but not great year, but there are still teams desperate enough to trade a 1 for him. You can trade up in the draft. You don't have to have a terrible season to move up in the draft order to get a quarterback. You can trade some assets. Maybe it's not even Derek Carr. Maybe your package plays together. You move up in the draft, and you get a quarterback that you want. CJ Stroud. Who knows? Who knows who may pop up? We've seen quarterbacks rise up in the middle of a season, and all of a sudden they're a top 10 pick, and we didn't see that coming 1-2 years before the draft. So you just never know, but you can always maneuver the draft. You've got some assets, and the Raiders do have some roster assets.
Well, ordinarily that would be true for most teams, but past history will show you that the Raiders are incapable of doing that. They can't even move back, let alone up. Shit.
You see that you got to move past the past, man. You got to look forward to the future. If Ed Dawes is the guy everyone touts him to be, and he's the genius everyone wants him to be, you got to believe that he can maneuver and get it done, right?
No, that's real. That's it. But again, that goes down that different path with what we've seen thus far, and past history is all we can go on. Now, when somebody comes in with a track record, then we can have a different conversation. But part of the issue of what a lot of the people who would rather not move on from Carr is that this organization has shown an inability to develop quarterbacks, develop a lot of their young talent. And if you're not going to get the top tier guy coming in off the street, then you're better off with what you got and trying to try to build pieces around what you have now, which we've been doing arguably since 2016 and has not worked yet.
That's the major argument to keep Carr, which is the funny thing. It's Raiders fans always bring up, well, what have we had before Carr? You know, he's the best we've had in how long? You know, since Rich Gannon or whatever. And I think that's why I've always been of the mentality that if you're going to get rid of Carr, I have to see a concrete plan that you either really believe in, a young guy that you're going to bring in, or you bring in somebody who's clearly a better quarterback. And I'm of the latter decision-making process. I think if you get rid of Carr, it's got to be for an upgrade.
Absolutely. This team, they're in a position where they can't afford to go backwards. And even if I don't believe that changing the quarterback means a rebuild. I believe that this team is good enough for a retool. There's a couple pieces that they need absolutely to move forward. If they're going to continue with Carr, they need to have a change in philosophy, and he needs to be 100% on board with it. One of two things needs to happen. They either need to go full shotgun spread which would be what Dabble would probably have him running, or that he needs to understand that he's not going to be throwing the ball 30 times a game. His throws need to go down to about 25, and they're going to be running the dog shit out of the ball, which he's shown he can do, but he's got to keep those turnovers low, and that is something that he's not been able to do.
The only thing I would really worry about is Carr's never been great in the red zone.
Ever.
And I think that regardless of what happens, the Raiders have to have a strong run game, because that's how you finish drives inside the 20, inside the 10, inside the 5. I don't think you put the ball in Derek Carr's hands and have him throw it most times when you're that close to the end zone. You got to be able to run the ball, run it effectively when you're that close to pay dirt. So that's going to be an important part of the offense moving forward. And that's why I like a Jim Harbaugh coming in. I explained that someone who, again, pushed back and said, why do you like Harbaugh so much? And I think you mentioned this, Robinson, that his style of offense, I think, would help the Raiders, especially in the red zone.
And I agree with that. And at the same time, I don't. With the personnel that they have on this team, a lot of variance in the play call could have helped a lot. I don't know what particular plan they run where they don't run receivers into the end zone when you're in a goal-to-go situation.
Right.
We'll start with that, or this continuance of calling routes that are short of the line of scrimmage. Your tight end is 6'6". Every time you've seen a tight end who was 6'5" or taller, that tight end absolutely is a monster in the red zone, and yet Darren Waller can't get a damn sniff. He can't get a look. You look at all of the China routes that Hunter ran. There's a lot of things. Brian Edwards has great hands, great size, and a natural ability to shield defenders off of the ball with his body. I have a lot of coaching issues, a lot of play calling issues. I don't know who was calling audibles and what the original play was, but there was a disconnect there that needed to be fixed. And there's opportunities to throw in the red zone. Let your big, tall, wide receivers go up and get the ball. They didn't even get that opportunity. It was usually either the China route or one of those ugly fades in the corner of the end zone that never fucking worked.
I think the problem is the Raiders have this philosophy that we're just going to throw short of the sticks and let the receiver do the rest of the work. And I think that's part of the problem, whereas you just pointed out, just throw it to your biggest pass catchers and let them go up and get the ball. And I think, that's part of that is, I guess, on Carr, on the offensive coordinator, when they get together and they draw up these plays, what are you looking for? What look do you want? How are we going to get in the end zone? I think, as you said, they have to get rid of the yak philosophy. We're just going to let the receiver do the rest of the work. Give it to him, let him get 5-6 yards after the catch. I think that has to be done away with, of course.
Or not necessarily done away with, but
In the
definitely
red zone.
tweaked.
In the
It
red zone.
definitely tweaked.
On third
And
down, on third and longs.
oh, for
when
sure.
When you're 10, 15 yards away from the end zone, yeah, it has to be done away with in those situations.
No, you're 100% right about that. But we're an hour in. I've exhausted all my Raider questions for today. I thank you for your time, Mo. As always, your expertise is invaluable. Phil, you got anything else for Mo?
No.
We're gonna revisit that Winston conversation later on, Jones.
No, we will. But you know what? I got something sending right to your place later on.
So now we threatening. Now we're gonna.
I got something coming right to your house. Yeah.
Hey man, you disagree with a person. You disagree with a person, and then they want to send you gifts that you're not looking for.
You don't want
saying straight from Sarah Lee.
It's
straight
gifts.
From Sarah Lee.
What's wrong with gifts?
I don't like gifts unless I know what they are. I don't like surprises. I like to know.
I heard that. I don't either.
Oh man, come on!
I do not like surprises.
Come on, Mo.
Like you can tell me, and I'll act surprised. How about that?
Yeah, I'd rather go that route.
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on here, and real quick, actually, before we go, and I'll try your hand on this. Let's say Mark Davis goes in the complete opposite direction. He had his meeting with Rich Bisaccia today. Now, the popular opinion is Rich is no longer for this job. But what if Mark keeps him? What would need to happen in that particular aspect? Because I believe that it could work if you bring this staff back together. But the one guy who absolutely has got to go is Greg Olsen.
Greg Olsen. I agree.
Got to go.
Yeah, I'm with you. No argument, no pushback at all. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Greg Olsen has to be replaced.
Well, check this out. They were all still on that 4-year contract, right?
They should all be. Yeah, everybody except for
Bradley. So
they should all be free, unemployed. Actually,
yeah. So it'd just be Olsen, actually Bisaccia, and
Bradley,
and
his staff. Yeah, Bradley and his staff who came on after
they're the only ones that were still in the contract.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, yeah, I don't think Bisaccia is going to end up coming back. I think from what we heard with the early reports about them, even if he did make the playoffs, that they were going to be looking to try to move on. You know, you heard Schefter say it. You've heard Ian Rappaport say it. I just don't think they were going to end up bringing him back either way. I think the mindset for Mark Davis was already made that they were willing to just go a different route. You want to start. You want something clean. You want to know that I can get success from this guy. If it's a Jim Harbaugh, okay, I can get success. I'm liking what I'm seeing down from the guys over in Tampa Bay with Ty Bowles or maybe a Byron Leftwich. And then you also look at Eric Bieniemy. I mean, you may not have him on your list, but you look at what he's been doing with Kansas City, and you see success coming from out of Kansas City, whether it's coming out of the front office or, you know, from your coaching staff. You want to grab somebody like that. You want success. You want to have a winning record from now on instead of, I mean, yeah, we made the playoffs, but how much of that was, you know, just us, or, you know, was that really everybody just playing off the heat of the moment, the emotions that went on this past season?
I just look at it as you don't want to look at this season and go, this is what we want, because you're always striving to take the next level. And is Bisaccia going to take you to the next level? Now that's debatable, but I think that, to your point, Jones, that's what you're looking at. We don't need to just get to the playoffs. Now we're looking to win some playoff games and actually contend for a title. Who can take us there?
Definitely. And you can't keep getting out coached flat out. You just can't keep getting out coached.
Now again, you saw that with Bisaccia. He was getting out coached. And some of them games that we should have won.
Mm-hmm. Outcoached and out executed on the field is a bad look. But okay, so I know I've said this a few times, but now I mean it. Get off my show, Mo. No, I'm kidding. We love you. We love you. Thank you for your time, Mo. Everybody, the fabulous Moe'stradamus.
Hey man, don't call me
Moton.
fabulous, man. That sounds. I don't like that.
The hood fabulous. The Saint of Brooklyn.
All right, I'll take that one. Appreciate y'all.
All right, right on.
Everybody, Mo a cheesecake.
Oh, see, here we go.
It's already coming.
I promise you.
Return to sender.